forcibly took the children from school and then took them so that he would stay with them. But then there was an appeal pending. So the wife, made a preliminary application against the husband taking the children. And this matter, the Court of Appeal decided that the husband should not have taken the matter into his own hands and taken the children, and then the husband appealed to the Supreme Court to say that he should have been allowed to keep the children, since the High Court had decided the case in his favor, and appeal to the Court of Appeal is not a stay of execution. That the woman should have applied for stay of execution and should have been granted. But the woman applied for stay of execution to the High Court judge, and the High Court judge did not grant the application. So she has also appealed against that to the Court of Appeal to say that there should be stay of execution. So in the end, the Supreme Court decided that the fact that the matter had not been heard before the Court of Appeal and finalized, and the husband should not have taken the matter into his own hands. So this was also a groundbreaking appeal. In the end, actually, the Court of Appeal, as well as the Supreme Court, found that the custody should have been awarded to the wife, because the children were still young. I believe the oldest was 11 or so, and the youngest was 4. And 2 were girls and 1 was a boy. And both the Court of Appeal and the Supreme Court felt that the children should have been in the custody of their mother, and that is the decision. So we have had some good cases. But the problem is that most women, cannot afford to go to court. And these are just the few cases that have been able to go up. Also, before the court, it says that the woman has the same rights with regard to the law relating to the movement of persons and freedom to choose their residence and domicile. I'm sure those of you who are married women here will agree with me that usually the woman doesn't have much choice in the domicile. Like me now, I'm married to a Gambian. I would have loved for us to have lived in Zimbabwe, but it was either I go and live in the Gambia or whatever. So some of these laws are there for the protection of women, but then the implementation is what I believe is going to be our biggest challenge. The government is also supposed to provide legal aid support to ensure equal protection and promotion for women, ensure that the law enforcement organs at all levels are equipped and to effectively interpret and enforce gender equality rights. We are currently having ongoing judicial training for both judges, magistrates, and so forth. But you can still feel that there is a lot of, it is really necessary for there to be more training for both the judges and the magistrates regarding women's rights. They are also supposed to ensure that women are equitably represented in the judiciary and law enforcement organs of the state. I'm pleased to say that, as I said earlier, in the judiciary we have some female representation. But the female lawyers, we now have more than 50% women in the Gambian Bar Association, which is really well. There is also a right to freedom of expression. Every woman is entitled to freedom of expression, including freedom to hold opinions and to receive and debate ideas and information without interference. I believe that this one is easier said than done. I'm sure that most women, particularly the rural women, they have the men sort of putting them down and telling them, even on the day of voting, who you are supposed to go and vote for, otherwise you are not my wife. I will know whether you voted for so-and-so if you go in there and vote for the other person, and so on and so on. So there is a lot of intimidation, and women, I don't believe that they can freely express themselves as they would like to. So as far as I'm concerned, it is also implementation. The other issue is the personal law, because most of the acts you find that most of the sections will talk about the personal law of the woman. And then when you come to the personal law, the majority of people in the Gambia are Muslim. And you find that that personal law guides them. But you also find that sometimes it is how they are interpreting Islam. Because as far as I'm concerned, Islam has very good laws regarding women, and in fact there's a lot of provisions that are there to protect and promote human rights for women. But you find that it is the implementation, and most women actually don't know what is in the Quran. They have to read it for themselves. Like I was a Christian before, but when I converted, I made quite sure I got my husband got me a Quran in English and the Arabic transliteration, and I have been reading it, and I know that we do have a lot of provisions that are positive for women that are not being implemented as they should be. For the educated women and those who are working, it's easier for them to get their own property, and if it is land, they can actually lease the land in their own names. But the rural women are the ones who are really suffering, because in most cases they don't own the land unless they are cultivating. They are cultivating the land either as daughters of their fathers, as part of that, or if they get married, they are cultivating it as the wives of their husband. Now, if they divorce, it means they lose the right to farm on that land, and whatever they have invested in that land, they cannot take away with them once there is a divorce. And I believe that the rural women are really suffering. In fact, there was the rights project that was started some years back, in which women are the ones who usually cultivated land. But then when the project came, then they said they wanted the name of the husband. And some husbands had 2, 3, 4 wives. And so it was the name of the husband that was put down for the project. And it was the name of the husband through which they would receive the loans or whatever. And the husband could receive the loan and go and use it for something else, and the poor women are still having to go and use the project. So it can be a real problem. There's also the question of the prison. The female lawyers of the Gambian flag, the one I belong to, they did make some prison visits. They do make some prison visits. And at one time they found a woman. In fact, she was actually a girl. She was about 14 or so, and she even had a child with her in the prison. And this woman was charged with having murdered her husband. When one goes into the story, you find that she actually did not even want to marry the man, and she was forced into the marriage. And when she went there, she was abused for some time. And I think in the end, she just decided enough was enough. I don't know how she managed to get some rat poison, put it in the food, and the husband and a few family members also died.
have 3 more speakers.
I see. Okay. So anyway, let me just finalize. Okay. I had more to say, but because of the time. The problem is that you have got these women who are being abused, and then when they take the matters into their own hands, they end up having the problem of being taken to prison and without any form of legal aid. We are now looking into all these legal aid provisions to see if some of the lawyers would take some of these cases pro bono and help some of these women who have very serious issues related to why they are before the court. The other problem is that of polygamy, which is, as I was saying, is their personal law, but then the courts will tell you that it is your personal law, and then there isn't really much that you can do about it. And also the inheritance laws are also unfair, but then they will tell you it's a personal law. So at the end of the day, the Women's Act has given women a lot of rights, which we are very grateful for. But on the other hand, they are taking those rights away by saying that you should use your personal law. And then that personal law takes those rights away. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now I invite Dr.
At the status of women. As we all know that women have shown their excellence, they have proved themselves in all fields. But surprisingly, they are not only given degrading and discriminatory treatment, but are also subject to violent treatment since centuries. The females are always been treated as secondary in the family and in the society, which has adversely affected their familial, social, political, economic, personal and psychological development. It is open and admitted fact that women in Indian society has been and is still being discriminated in all walks of her life. This discrimination starts not only from her life, which continues throughout her life, but it starts much before her birth when she is in mother's womb. The family members, including female members, do not allow to take birth of a daughter in the family. Sex-selective abortion, that is female feticide and earlier female infanticide was prevailing in the society, is widely rampant in our society, which has a huge sex ratio in our country. If we want to know the reason behind this discriminatory treatment, we should also know the status of women in earlier period and in contemporary society. If we look into that early Vedic period, women enjoyed almost equal status, equal rights with men in all fields of life. This period is still considered as golden period for women, as one of the ancient shloka says, Yatra Naryantu Pujate Ramante Tatra Devta. Means, where women are worshipped, abode of God is there. But gradually, if we move further, the position of women started deteriorating during medieval period because of the practices being followed in society like sati, child marriage, jawar, dedasis, jobbies and others so on. The woman had no independent identity of her own in the family and in the society. Another verse given in Ramayana, that is, Dhol, Janwar, Shudra, Pashu, Nari, Ye Sab Tadan Ke Adhikari. This indicates the status of woman, where woman is considered, is compared with an animal and is subject to always cruelty. So this position and status of Hindu woman particularly was not very good, and they were mercy of social evils which were forced upon them by age-old traditions and customs set up by the patriarchal society. British time, if we move further, then